how are things going with me? I had a strange experience, but I'm going to wait on that because Megan's going to be able to make fun of me about something.
Did you
How
bring your
are things?
cocktail?
Oh, I have to work early in the morning, so I'm
I had a
maintaining the
strange
beer.
experience, but I just
And
beer.
yeah, and I think I hear you in the microphone. You want to say hi to the audience?
How's it going, everybody?
And
Hopefully, everyone can hear me fine.
can you see the stream on your desktop
I
so you
do.
can?
It looks
All right, there we go.
looks frozen on my side.
It does? Okay, let me look. Um, just make sure to mute it so it doesn't
Yeah, I got
ping
it
your
muted
microphone.
now.
Okay,
Oh,
looks like we're
never
good.
mind. I stopped it, not
I'm gonna
muted it.
wait on that. Oh,
There we
okay,
go.
there we go.
No, it's going.
Excellent. All right. So, hey, this is Benjamin Boyce, and welcome to the live stream. I don't number them, but this is Colin Wright. He is a evolutionary biologist. He's also a writer now. He's also a podcast guest.
That's what I've been doing. I don't even know what to call myself anymore because I got the Substack going. I got the Quillette editing. I'm working for Fair now, actually. I don't know if a lot
Oh,
of people know that. I'm kind of behind the scenes. um, doing editing for them.
innovation.
I do their newsletter, and I just went down actually to LA to shoot a video with them. I don't know if you've seen the stuff they've been putting out with like Daryl Davis and the green screen videos and stuff. But I did a fun one about DEI in college professor applications when you're applying to schools and stuff for
Those
jobs.
statements.
Yeah, yeah. So it was about that and why they're no good. And my experience filling them out and having to list all the mentees that I've ever had, my field assistants, and specifically asking me for what are all the sexual and gender and racial minorities I'd ever mentored in my entire life. And
Hmm.
just like Pokemon, you just gotta catch them all and put them on your resume, and then hopefully you can stand on top of this pile of minorities and they'll give you a job. That's
Yeah. You
basically
know.
how it felt. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so I have a video coming out on that, and I think it'll be good because they're doing some good videos. They're highly
Yep.
produced, and I'm going to be animated apparently for part of it. So
Oh,
I
very
need to
cool.
see how I look.
Do you know what
It could
style it would
go,
be? Like Waking Life rotoscoped or like some sort of like Mickey Mouse,
I don't know.
Colin Mouse kind of thing?
Just hoping they make me look bulkier than I am.
I'd like to see you. I'd like to see R. Crumb's rendition of you, and actually Megan Murphy. While we're going
R.
there,
Crumb.
you don't know that comic? He's kind of a creepy old guy, but he was very active in the '70s.
Yeah, we'll see. We finished recording and they sent it out um, to some person who doesn't. I just had to make edits on the little animation directions for the animators.
Yeah,
So I think it'll be good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Question to the audience: how are our levels, audio levels, and is my sound synced up with my mouth? Because I'll probably have to switch cameras if there's a delay. So just let us know in the chat.
It's
And
always the
Megan
worst.
Murphy is putting on her face. Apparently, it takes her like 5 or 6 hours to do that because there's so many. She's such a face, you know. If this is the
On
18,
Zoom,
she'd
I had the
definitely be a
little
face.
thing that you can correct. They have in-app makeup you can put on. They say like, would you like to
Like eyebrows.
improve your face? And there's a little sliding scale. If you go all the way to the
Oh,
top, you just look like a an emoji.
oh, really?
So,
Okay, yeah.
pretty
You just
much.
like
It
become
just
perfect.
just blurs everything. It's just insane airbrush. Sometimes you need a little airbrush.
Did you ever think that you'd be doing so much writing that you'd end up doing so much humanities kind of stuff, editing or?
Not at all. No. I was actually probably doing more writing in academia, but it was all on spiders and wasps and ants and
Yeah.
writing for grant applications that only one person's going to read. And, you publish a paper and then only maybe 20 people in your field are going to read, and then maybe two of them will cite it. So it's a whole different type of writing. Luckily, I had a blog for a long time in like the early 2010s.
Do tell.
It was called Warm Little Pond, and I basically just wrote. It was sort of my new atheist blog, and I wrote about atheism and science and evolution, and so that gave me a lot of good experience just writing for a general audience. I did that for years, so that actually
How
helped. transition over to academia and writing and telling stories with your data and stuff. And then it's translated over into what I'm doing now, which is sort of just general popular science writing.
Did you did it get much traction, your blog, your warm little
It kind of
pool?
did back then. I took it offline when I went into academia because there was like a lot of people that were uh, sort of reading it and digging up old stuff. Some things that I don't even agree with anymore. But
Like
there
what?
was oh, like I was a little more woke back then, and so I remember when uh, Richard Dawkins, he did, it was like in the whole elevator gate thing, and he did the Dear Muslima letter. I wrote actually an article, well, a little response, basically denouncing, well, not denouncing, it wasn't that strong. It was just like, you should know better than doing
Hmm.
this. And then I read it again like a couple of years ago, and I didn't even see myself in there. I was like, what was I thinking back then? Because I've since like
Yeah.
uh, sort of assessed that whole situation, and I just I see it completely differently now.
Mm.
So, but I mean, at the time,
People
I was
change.
a little more woke, I
That's okay.
suppose.
Did the unwokening happen all at once, or was it just like slowly being chipped away at by exposure to academia?
A little both. I mean, it was a slow drip for a while. It was mainly just around the idea of gender, and I just remember I just couldn't get a straight answer from anyone. I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, what does it mean to identify as a man? Like, are there behaviors or things that I can't do that aren't compatible with this? And then it's just like, anyone can be a man. Like, it's compatible with anything. Like, okay, well, then how is it different than a woman? They're like, well, I mean, it's an identity, and it just made no sense. Hold on, my phone's ringing.
That's okay.
Sorry.
You're a popular
and
guy.
so I couldn't get a straight answer, and it was always just like, well, these scholars, they know what they're talking about, and I just try to do my own research, as they say, and uh, I was convinced it was pretty insane, but I just sort of didn't think it would ever blow up, and then so when it did blow up, and then James Lindsay's whole the Sokol squared and showing that it is actually gibberish and they don't know what they're talking about. That was a moment. So it was sort of a slow drip. I was sort of de-wokening for a while, and then there was like it reached a point where it was just like a flip, just like a whole paradigm shift.
Yeah.
A lot of it too was, I thought someone you should get on your podcast too.
Hmm.
Rebecca Riley Cooper. Do you know who that is?
Probably, but
She's
maybe
on
not.
Twitter. I think her handle is like Buddha Loops or something. But she had a video called something like assessing the idea of gender identity or something like that. And she's like an analytical philosopher. And she had gone down these, so I had all these thoughts about gender and how it didn't make sense. And then someone said, "Oh, you should watch this video." And so I watched it. And she had gone down a lot of the same pathways that I had gone down, but then she used her like analytical philosophy to just like
Hmm.
drag it across the finish line for me. Some of my incomplete thoughts, she just like completed them in a brilliant way. And so that was a really pivotal video for me. She had like two on very close to the same topic, and then she had a bunch of articles that she wrote. But she was a pivotal thinker in just, I guess, the turfification of Colin.
Rebecca Riley Cooper. I'll have to look her up. I'm
Yeah,
sure we've crossed paths at some point
yeah.
because
And
the turf
she's on
world is
Twitter.
it's still an island. I'm not just talking about Turf Island, aka the UK, but it's still kind of basically everybody kind of knows
Yeah,
each other at this point because it is kind of a rebel cell. Um,
I need to make it out to Turf Island now that things
you
are
haven't been
kind of
there?
opening up. Are they accepting American flights? I don't even know the situation over there.
You know Helena?
Yeah.
Yeah, really witty, super based young girl, detransitioner. Yeah, but she's got so many different things in the iron. But she
Oh,
actually
she's
went
great.
to Wales and held somebody's hand. It was mentioned
I saw that.
last last podcast. So,
That
so
was
she made
you.
it out there,
That
but
was you
maybe
and
she
Local,
could.
wasn't
What? Yeah, it
it?
was with local.
In both their
Hello.
you have arrived.
There she
I'm pretty
is.
sweaty. I'm just trying to cool down a bit.
She's back in
I
Mexico.
have like
Oh my
beads of
God.
sweat
When I was
all
in
over
Oh,
my
Cabo,
face.
it was insane. We turned our AC off for a while, and then the entire room just turned slick. Just water everywhere. We thought there
Yeah.
was like a flood or something. Did we leave the water on and like clog the drain?
I was like, since I've got back, I have been cooped up in my apartment, like working. So today was kind of the first day that I left the house during the day, and I was like, seems like it's cooled down, but it has not cooled down. I was like literally, I like my chin was dripping. Like
Oh.
it was just
Sweat.
completely soaked. Yeah. Is everything? How's my internet? Does it seem janky or is
It's
it
a little
okay?
janky. Hopefully it'll catch up. But we're both on the
Well,
west coast, and you're somewhere in central Mexico.
yeah. I mean, I can connect it to um my hotspot, and sometimes that's better.
Well, I was
So
hoping to
hold on.
connect it to your hotspot. I'm going to read this super chat from Dr. Roller Gator.
Oh, he's
More
there.
people,
Wait, are we
more.
live right now?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I have a. I was planning on drinking something that Dr. Rollergator gifted me, actually.
Oh, really? Okay. Do you need a moment to go get the? Oh, look at that.
Oh,
What
no,
is
it's right
that?
there. This is a
Glen,
lovely
Wait, are we?
21-year-old scotch that he sent me for, I think it was either my birthday or when I got my contract renewed at Penn State, only for me to reject it and leave academia.
What's the name?
Glendronach.
Glendronach.
Let me put it up there.
Glendronach. I gotta read this super chat from because he was talking about Colin's papers. More people would read your WASP studies if you studied the effect of releasing millions of wasps in a downtown corporate office building on worker productivity. Dang.
It's true. I think it would make a splash.
Oh,
It'd make a buzz. Oh God.
oh, zzz,
Oh
social
God.
insights. Megan Murphy, what's the story with you?
I didn't realize that we're live when I started talking. Are we like on the internet right now?
It's
That
okay.
was just a
Okay.
private conversation about my chin
Oh
dripping.
no, this is.
Sorry, I should have done that.
Well, I was recently in America
Oh yeah, what
where
were you
I
doing?
came down with pneumonia, so I have a bit of a lingering cough still. But it's okay. I'm fine. I survived. I just
I'm
had a
glad to
bad
hear that.
cough.
You guys are both
I'm
on
sad you
Rogan.
couldn't make it out to Cabo.
No, I went to America instead of Cabo. Sorry. How was Cabo?
Cabo was fun, although this time of year demographically it's just a bunch of boomers, so we didn't really
Oh,
get to see
really?
people our age. But I was probably offered cocaine about 200 times as I was walking through the town, so that was interesting.
Great.
They don't mix it with baby formula down there, right?
I mean, they probably do.
Black
I don't know. We didn't.
black.
I didn't buy any
Okay.
because it was a little shady. You know, do you get the guys that wear like the 20 sombreros who are like selling blankets and sombreros, and then you're like, no, I don't want a sombrero, and then they're just like, cocaine, weed.
That kind of
What did you say?
cocaine is like
Like,
not
oh,
even cocaine. It would like be like doing a line of chalk or something like that. It wouldn't have
I'm sure
the
there's not
desired
like
effect.
there's not like a Yelp. I can't give them like a review.
No,
Is
and
there?
you're obviously a tourist, so they are gonna sell you garbage because there's no accountability there.
That's weird.
I
No
mean, most of
accountability
the
in the drug
cocaine
trade.
isn't very great down here, which is odd because you'd think there would be good cocaine in Mexico, but at least if you're not a tourist, you know how to buy the least shitty of the shitty cocaine. I
So
don't, so I've been told.
when did you cross the line from tourist to trusted customer? Oh, she froze.
What was it? What was that, Ben?
Did I go away? Fuck. Okay, I need to,
Alright.
hold on, am I gone? Let
You
me
can
see if
reconnect.
I can, I need to reconnect, I need to connect to my hotspot instead of my actual connection, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'll be back,
So-
I'll be back.
Moonshine. When did you get into bacon moonshine? Distilling moonshine.
I've been doing that for about 3
Did
years,
I
maybe.
come back?
You don't think you ever left?
Oh, okay. I said, okay, now I'm connected to my hotspot, so I think my internet should be better.
We'll just
Is
roll
it
with
better?
It seems a little. Oh, maybe.
Mm,
It seems maybe a little worse, but I didn't really pay attention too much before.
Well, if it keeps being worse, I'll switch to the other one. Sorry about this.
Mhm.
Okay, continue
Hook
about
up to
moon
both
shine
at the
fantasy.
same time. Combine them.
Yeah, I wish I could do
So
that. Double up on my.
I've been moonshining for maybe 2.5 years or so. I started when I went to Penn State, and that was 2018. And it's just an amazing hobby. I had just been watching a lot of videos on how to do the whole process, and I got really into just the process of making whiskey and other spirits. And so I just bought like an alembic copper pot still, and I've been moonshining ever since. Now I move into Nashville pretty soon, which is like the moonshine capital of the world. So yeah, I'm pretty thrilled.
Are
How did
there
you
like
decide on Nashville? Sorry, this is going to be hard with two very talkative people.
So I had made a tweet actually just asking people where's a good place to move that's not really snowy, or at least not for a good portion of the year, that has decent housing prices and that's a lot of fun. And a lot of people said like Austin and Miami, and it's like, well, those are kind of expensive. But the place that was punching above its weight in terms of population relative to how many people were suggesting it was Nashville. And so I just booked a plane ticket and went out there for a week, met up with a real estate agent, and they drove me around for like an entire day looking at places. And then during that whole week, I just kind of went to different restaurants and downtown and checked it out. And I loved it there. Went to a bunch of distilleries, got a little drunk, and it's fantastic. So I just made a decision
hmm.
right then and there.
I know someone in Nashville. I think you guys would have beautiful babies.
Well, do tell.
Trying to make that
Are you
connection.
looking to have beautiful babies, Colin?
What was that?
Looking to have beautiful babies, Colin?
At some point. That's actually been a recent development. I've sort of went from child free to deciding that I think I want children. So yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It's been I've gone for maybe the last like 15 years being just like definitely will never have children. And then I've sort of flipped. It's been bizarre.
What happened?
It's kind of a weird story. It kind of happened almost like all at once. Uh, it's kind of, well, so I think a lot of the reason I didn't want kids before is because I gained so much meaning in my life from my close family. I just have me like my brother, my mom, my dad. We're just like a super close family. And my dad's been having sort of these health problems recently. And there was a moment where he fell and he kind of like knocked himself out, and it was a big, really, he was on the ground just like kind of like twitching and everything, and it was really scary. And so we had to go to the hospital because he wasn't really responsive. And in the moments when he was sort of going through that, I just sort of it was a major realization that our family unit that we have that gives me so much meaning of my life, like that's very ephemeral. It's going to go away, and at some point it's just going to be me and my brother. And so it was kind of at that moment that I realized that I probably want to try to create my own family unit again moving forward, because I don't know, there just never dawned on me that, I mean, it's kind of probably always there in the back of your mind that your parents are going to pass away, but it was more real in that moment. And so I don't know, just all of a sudden I just found myself thinking I need to recreate a family and recreate this. It was a bizarre experience, but yeah, he's doing well right now, by the way. He's fantastic, but it was still like a scary issue that was kind of jarring. So that's kind of where I am now. It was kind of all of a sudden, and it wasn't even a logical thing. It was just purely, something I felt, and now I like really want to have kids.
Oh, okay. Well, I know somebody in Nashville that you guys would make beautiful babies. I
Interesting.
think you would even get along too.
Well, you can tell me offline, or you can tell me here.
Well, I don't know if she wants her location.
Yeah.
I don't think
Okay.
she's
Yeah.
public with her location, but she's probably a mutual of ours. Megan, are you? Can you say something? Because you're frozen and your audio is all
Holding remarkably still.
was janked. I'm gonna take her off the screen just while we wait for her to settle that. I had another question for you. Oh, I wanted to ask both of you. I wanted you guys to compare your Rogan experiences, but we're gonna have to wait for her to be active in the call for that because you guys were both on
Yeah,
Rogan.
I know, it's crazy. I still can't even
So
believe that was the
awesome.
thing.
So awesome. Were you nervous as heck before it happened? I would probably
Um,
deny it. I don't like that. I don't like
yeah, no,
attention.
I was pretty nervous, like in my hotel room leading up to the event, because they send like a black car to kind of pick you up, and it just sort of arrives, and then you get into it, and it takes you to this remote location, and so that ride was nervous, but fortunately, Brett Weinstein was in Austin at the same time.
Hmm.
So I saw on Twitter that he had posted a picture of the Bat Bridge in Austin, and so I just sent him a text and I said, "Are you in Austin?" He said, "Yeah." And so we met up and we hung out at the Bat Bridge for a little bit. Then we went back to the hotel he was staying at. And we got a drink at the bar, and chatted a little bit. And he was going on immediately before me to do his big ivermectin talk with Pierre
The
Corey.
emergency thing.
Yeah, the emergency podcast. Yeah. So when I arrived at the studio, he was already in, well into hour three of that podcast, and so I watched the last bits from the holding area with his bodyguards and the nurse that's there. And then it was actually really good for me because I think Brett's been on Rogan like 6 times, and Brett knows me from Heterodox Academy conference. I know Heather, and so when they all came out, since I knew Brett and Brett knew Joe, it was sort of just, I kind of was already in their circle. And so it was just a very natural, like, oh, hi, like, I'm Colin, you're Joe Rogan. We both know Brett. And so it was a really good just icebreaker. And then Joe needed to get food between podcasts because he just finished a 3-hour podcast. So he ate food and we all just chatted for like a half hour or so before Brett took off and then we
Okay.
went in and started. So we just sort of continued our conversation we were having out there into the podcast. So there was no like, well, there was like a moment when he's sort of looking at Jamie and then he looks at you and goes, "Hello, Colin," right? Because that's how he starts his podcast. So there was a moment where it's like, oh shit, like cameras are rolling and there's millions of people going to be watching this. But
What?
but
Why
other
is
than
there a
that,
nurse there?
I had to get a COVID test right before you go on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, all right.
yeah,
It
he's
wasn't like
he's
there's
got
not
some
like
of those.
weird extreme sports happening in the background that nobody's aware of, and there's this
I
trauma
mean,
nurse
there
on.
could be. The bodyguards were huge. They were bulky dudes. But no, we had to get a COVID test right before. Although they were just saying like, if it's positive, we'd probably still still let you go. We just do it. So yeah, so we did that, but it was pretty natural. Once we started talking, it was fine. It was so much better than a virtual type of thing because I'm actually looking at a person and talking to them, and you
Yeah,
get the body cues from them.
smell.
So it felt pretty natural as I was there, which was good.
Okay, let's see if Megan's. Can you move, Megan? Nope, she's froze. Here we go.
There she is.
Oh my bad.
Megan's in
I'm
Cancun.
back. Hello.
Yeah,
Can
it's
you hear
janky.
me?
Maybe it'll sync up.
It's the
Switch to a
Cellulita
different connection.
Wi-Fi.
Megan's froze. Megan's froze.
Uh-oh. Is she in a different spot? You guys have done live streams before. Did she move somewhere else with crappier Wi-Fi? Oh,
No, I
there she is.
remember this background. I think it's just they're not used to allocating resources to her because she took such a long break from her place. It looks like she's
Mm.
clearing up. She'll be clearing up pretty soon. Just Megan, you might need once things get stable, center yourself on the screen because we're sharing a very narrow kind of Brady Bunch kind of thing. There we go. Look at that beautiful hair. Your hair's so lovely when you're down in Mexico. It's so swirly.
It's all the sweat. Sorry, I switched to a different Wi-Fi connection that I thought would be better, but it was worse, and then
It seems good
I
right
had
now.
to, and then I closed some stuff and did some things. So is it better now?
It appears to be.
Oh,
Okay.
you know what? Thank you guys for repeatedly saying that my audio's off because this program, it should be better now. It might even be too loud. How do I sound now? So sorry
Good
about
to me.
that. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, if I did, people are talking about me going on Rogan, and Megan, I want to hear your Rogan story, and you guys can compare and contrast your treatment or your experience, like the whole existential kind of just moment of doing that, and then how many hookups you guys have been proffered afterwards. You guys don't have to share that, but I wonder who's got more. It's hard to
I've
say.
got so many marriage proposals since then, and
I've
men
gotten
wanting to come
0.
here to Say Lita and take me on dates. I'm still getting them now. I have like a lot of new male fans. So it
Nice.
was a really positive experience for me. It would have
Well,
been, it was a
Megan,
positive experience anyway. I had a lot of fun. It was probably one of my peak moments, to be honest. I really like him a lot. I think he's awesome. And I mean, I liked him before that. We got along and I had a lot of fun.
well, you cultivated a female, principally a female audience, and now you've kind of been branching out since your great centrist ventures. But Rogan sure has brought a lot of totally different attention to you than any previous audience before.
Yeah, I have a lot of like MMA guys, like fitness guys, and like lifting guys and fighting guys following me now, which I quite like. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I got not just because I'm constantly seeking male attention as a like ball palmer, but
What's a ball palmer? Is that a is that a thing?
I'm debuting my new shirt.
Oh,
Is it a drink like an Arnold Palmer? No.
It's the. Do you
is that
guys
like a
not know
like a
why I'm
fluffer
wearing this?
for erotic golf or something?
No, and all the radical feminists who got mad at me for, I guess, like a number of things, but actually a lot of them got mad at me because they don't like Benjamin here. And so clearly I'm accountable for everything Benjamin does and says. I think that's the correct feminist analysis, is that things that he says are things that I am signing onto, and it's my fault that he says. I'm not mad about anything that you've said anyway, Benjamin. You can say whatever you want.
Well, no,
But
no, no.
like,
There's a lot of purity spirals or whirlpools in the feminist community, but there's a lot of excellent feminists too. So it's an interesting landscape.
of course. But I mean, so, like there are some radical feminists on the internet who really don't like you and don't like me talking to you and my relationship with you. And then also just generally, I think we're angry about various positions that I've taken and some things that I've said that are critical of feminism and radical feminism, and my sort of newer, I guess, attempts to have like more nuanced conversations rather than like such dogmatic ideological conversations. And there's things that I've been questioning about feminism and so on and so forth. But some of those women called me a ball palmer, like, which is essentially, it's like they just think that I'm saying all these things because I'm desperate for balls. I know.
They come up with the
Desperate
most
for my attention.
misogynistic
I
insults. Those women.
know. And I was like, well, I mean, I can't argue with it because I am a ball palmer, literally. But like, it's like, yeah, the idea that like I don't have a head of my own and that I'm not speaking with integrity and authenticity, which of course I am, that I'm not just thinking independently for myself, but in fact, I'm just saying all these things because I really just want men to like me, as if like I need to try that hard, like as if like women are so desperate to get laid. Like it's not that hard for women to get male attention. You don't need to like agree with all their politics in order to get men to want to have sex with you. Like that's stupid. But so they called me things like a handmaiden and a ball palmer. And actually, when I was on Rogan, I mentioned this to him, and he was like, "What? What's a ball palmer?" So I explained it, and, So now I'm like embracing the term because I find it very humorous. I think it's like a really funny term, like a ball palmer. Like it's kind of gross, and like
I like
it's
how
just a
it
strange thing to
feels in the
say.
mouth. Not to go there, but
Ball.
like ball palmer,
Rolls
ball
off the tongue
palmer.
I
well.
feel like it's a bit awkward,
Oh.
but like, and I didn't mean that in a gross way.
Yeah, we're
Um,
there already. We're gonna switch hotspots
I
any
realized
moment
we
now.
we both gave Rogan moonshine on our.
Yeah, I have
Is that
some,
another
I
euphemism?
have some moonshine here. There's a woman, I mean,
Is
a
that
moonshine, right?
is
So I
that
bought
this?
it off of a woman here,
Did you
and she just
did you buy
sells it
it
out of water
in
bottles.
that container?
Yeah, it's right. Yeah,
It
Is
came
it
with it.
it's
is it
right.
like got baby powder in it and stuff like that? Is it like, or is it the real deal? Do they sell you the real deal?
Like it's like whatever 90 proof Mexican moonshine from. It's like Jalisco's own moonshine from the agave plant. So it's sort of like
Yep.
it's a version of mezcal, but it's slightly different. And I've never been able to actually figure out how, but there's something in like the preparation or something that makes it different from mezcals. Like mezcals, I find tend to be like, well, often a bit like smoky. Like I find
Yeah.
raicilla, although raicilla can be different, I find it a bit like sweet, but no one else does. Everyone else thinks it tastes like gasoline.
And I think spirits are sweet, and I think mezcal gets its smokiness because they bake it underground, like in the dirt.
Okay,
Whereas
right.
like tequila, they just have like these stainless steel ovens, so you get like the earthy smoke from the
Okay.
in the mezcal.
Have you ventured into mezcal, or you do mostly grain liquors and spirits, Colin?
I've been into mezcal. Yeah, I like it
I mean, you
better than
made it.
tequila. Oh, I haven't made it. It's actually really difficult to make because you have to actually. It's not like I can just get agave nectar and distill, ferment and then distill that. It's like a huge process of actually like baking the plants, and a lot of the flavor comes from like that baking process. So it'd be really difficult to make your own tequila and mezcal. It's also a little harder to make whiskey too. I pretty much stick to like honey shine and rum because you can just sort of ferment molasses or honey, and then you can just distill the mead or the whatever you make from the molasses. It's just a lot easier.
Okay. Yeah. Does it smell? Is it dank?
I think it smells really good, especially when you have the molasses going. I think I make good stuff. I'll send you guys samples if you want.
Well, yeah. I don't know what
I would
the
like
laws
some.
are with sending things like
It's
that.
completely
explosive.
illegal.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well. Yeah. That's good. So abortion.
Actually,
What? No, I'm sorry, Colin. What
Do
were
you
you gonna
love
say?
abortions? Who likes abortions? Who here wants to have an abortion?
Oh,
Not
do we
me.
get
I'm
a
not
I wish I
choice?
could.
Everybody has a
Wow.
choice. Your body, your choice.
Okay.
Abortions are for all people. It's everyone's choice to have an abortion.
Because men can have abortions now because men
Uh-huh.
can give birth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now
Men
we
can
can
get
comment.
pregnant. Exactly. We're all the same.
It's an example of a
Isn't
pretty
it
good
Pregnant, everyone might potentially need an abortion.
a major like self-own for like the modern feminist movement about men can have babies now. So now we can talk about abortion.
What did you guys want to talk about re-abortion?
No, you
That's
put
how
up
I
abortion.
into
That was
this
that was
conversation.
that was your idea.
That was your idea.
You brought it up.
You want to do abortion? Then we had a couple other topics to talk about, but I guess we did the Rogan thing.
Yeah, I mean, I had a really fun time, and he didn't like my raicilla, but he gave me some really good Texas whiskey, which I went and found when I was in Austin. I think I found it anyway. He had said, I was like, this is really good whiskey. And he's like, oh, I'll give you a bottle. And then we both forgot about it. So then when I was back in Austin, I was like on a desperate mission to find that whiskey again because it was quite good. And I think I found it because I sort of recognized the label. And I think that it's called Still Austin. And I didn't buy any when I was there because I didn't realize that the liquor stores were closed on Sunday because of God.
God damn it.
But anyway,
ouch.
Still Austin, it's like a Texas local Austin whiskey.
Okay, so I have a topic. It's an open topic though. We're all like we all kind of like talk about certain things that overlap, like with the gender issue, right? I guess is probably where we kind of all kind of interact or overlap with a lot of what we've been known for in the work that we've done. But what's something that you're frustrated with our network that we're not talking about Is there
Abortion.
something that abortion? Okay, we're not talking about abortion.
No, I'm just trolling you, but I mean, I don't know if it's something that you're not talking about, but I get really frustrated around this like network. I don't know what to call this anymore because I think like it used to sort of be called the like intellectual dark web and people aren't using those terms, but I guess like heterodox
Yeah, okay.
people
I
or
hear
something like
anti-woke a
that.
lot more now too.
Yeah, the anti-woke crew. I
But we need
find
to be
that
for
crew
something.
Yeah.
the truth, duh.
Ooh. Are we truthers?
That's
It's true.
I
But they would
say
say
that
that they're
I'm
for that
seeking
too.
truth. I seek the truth. I'm
Yeah.
seeking like authentic conversations and the truth. And I guess like the best way forward, if you want to talk about things like policy and legislation, like I'm not seeking an ideological path forward or a particular kind of politic, just whatever is the most rational policy that brings about, I don't know, brings us closest to fuck. I don't want to say equality because that's sort of a not the most accurate term, but allows people the most freedom and autonomy in their lives, perhaps, to be able to live a dignified life. Hopefully that brings them happiness. Personally, like my number one thing I think is probably seeking happiness in my life.
And
I don't
liberation. Well, not liberation, but liberty.
Well, liberty and freedom, I think, is what allows me to be truly happy, probably in many ways. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm just sort of like blabbing.
No, that's okay. Let's just fish until we find something. Colin.
Well, that's why you're in Mexico, right?
Well, exactly. Yeah, I'm happy here, so why would I leave? I think people like some people are mad at me or they think I'm like on vacation or whatever, and I'm not on vacation. I work all the time here, but like I'm just living my life in a different place. But I am really happy and I do have a lot of fun, and I think that makes people angry. Honestly, I think people are like, she's having fun and I'm not having fun. Clearly, she doesn't deserve fun or happiness. Okay, well, I would like to be happy. I'm very sorry.
How long you staying in Mexico for? Do you have like a
Forever.
departure date?
No.
Forever. Is that your new perma home?
Yeah. I mean, I might at some point kind of do part-time in the US, but I'm not going back to Canada. Alas. I don't want to, but also I genuinely am worried that if I went back, they'd like detain me or arrest me or something weird like that. I know that sounds hyperbolic, but I was supposed to go back last week. Like when I was doing this trip to the US, I was going to go to Vancouver also to get some stuff from my apartment. But I was getting so stressed out about the idea of going back there, and I was so worried that I'd like get stuck there and I wouldn't be able to make it out. And I was like, this is not worth the stress. I don't need my stuff. It's just clothes. Like, I'm not gonna, it's too risky. It's giving me too much anxiety. So I just went to the States, and it's super easy to travel around within the States, but it's incredibly difficult and complicated to go to Canada, and you have to submit all this documentation to the government, and they threaten to like quarantine you and arrest you and fine you, even if you kind of like follow the rules. And I don't know, and like Trudeau's doing all this fucked up stuff like with the vaccine mandates. I mean, provincially, from province to province, you have to have a vaccine passport basically to do anything, to go to the gym, to go to the restaurants, to go to events, to get on a plane or a train, public or not public transit. I think the bus, you don't need it, but the passports are like, it's a government regulated app, so it's not just showing your proof of vaccine on a card, which you can do in the US. Like when I was in San Francisco, I had to show my physical card, but they don't make you show like this thing on the app that you've gone through the government and they've okayed, and you have a QR code and they're tracking every single thing that you do. And it differs from province to province. So like anyone who goes to BC who wants to do anything has to go through the government. And then if you're going to a different province, need to get that passport too. And it's this whole process. And again, you just submit all this documentation and then they approve it. And then you have to like, it's so creepy, and I just disagree with it, and I don't want to participate, even though I think it's scary and sketchy, and I'm worried that they'll decide they want, and you basically have to consent to perhaps being quarantined anyway, even if you have the vaccine, even if you've gotten like the negative test before you cross the border. Like, you might just test positive and then they'll have to quarantine you and you won't be able to leave. But yeah, I don't want to participate in that. Like, it's just totally wrong and scary and awful. So I didn't go, and I don't know when I'll go back. I don't want to go back. Like, I really don't. Like, obviously I miss my family and my friends, but not so much that I want to trade in my freedom. And I've been outspoken about the COVID regulations and restrictions and vaccine mandates. And I just feel like, Justin Trudeau's putting through all these bills that regulate free speech online and regulate hate speech. And that just means that so much of what I talk about, including the gender identity stuff, will essentially become illegal. Like, I don't feel that I can live in Canada. I really, even if I wanted to, which I don't.
I'm just speculating here. I'm not, this is not an opinion. This is just a thought experiment. But if the government did want to increase its control over the population, like in a just broad sweeping sense, and it had the technology to do that with a virus, it could design a virus to do that. This would probably be the perfect virus. You wouldn't want to like wipe out the children. You would design it to hit, like probably the older stuff, to kind of just slowly ramp up these things, kind of just slightly pressure people into that. I'm not saying that that's what happened, but it's probably a smart move if you wanted it to happen to like, you need to, put the fear of death into people. But with this thing, it's the perfect kind of pressure point to like push.
Yeah, it's in like a gray area of how deadly it is, where you can easily whip people up into a fury, and into be incredibly fearful, because people are dying from it. So yeah, it's definitely in that one gray area where a lot can be done with it. It can be downplayed, it can be overhyped. And I think, there's definitely a power grab going with regard to it. So my stance has always been like, I'm against vaccine mandates for COVID. I wouldn't say I'm against mandates across the board if it were like some serious, like, this is killing like 15% of everyone that gets it. I think if this were like killing children, killing everyone at a really high rate, I think 95% of people would be begging for some sort of way to verify who's vaccinated, who's not, to come into their businesses. And I think that could be a good argument to have for some verification process. And we can't just let you walk into a crowded area if you're going to kill 15% of the people who are in there if you spread it. But I think COVID it hasn't met that threshold for me of being scary enough and killing enough people where this is something that we need to mandate for, and potentially lose your job over it. So yeah, it is one of those.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
The COVID vaccine doesn't stop people from getting COVID or spreading COVID. So it doesn't make any sense. Like, all this vaccine does is hopefully prevent people from getting really serious COVID symptoms. So the whole conversation doesn't make any sense to me, because what most people who are pro-vaccine mandate in this context will say is like, I just saw a tweet today from some like New Zealand politician who was like, I'm getting the vaccine to protect my friends who can't get the vaccine, to keep them safe. And then like, are you stupid? Like, how many, and so many people seem to say that, and I can't figure out if they actually still believe that or not. Because at first, maybe when we didn't know that much about the vaccine, I think it would have been fair for people to assume at least that it would lessen the spread or keep you from getting the vaccine or getting COVID. I mean, that's the point of vaccines generally, is to keep you from getting the disease or the virus that you're being vaccinated from. But we know that that's not the case now. So, I mean, it very obviously to me should be a personal and individual choice because it only affects you. You're the only one who might be protected from anything, i.e., really serious symptoms, by getting this vaccine. And then, so once they're like, oh, well, you're being selfish. You need to protect all these people from the spread. And then when you point out how the vaccine actually works, then they'll go to, well, they're going to overload hospital beds, like the people who aren't getting vaccinated. And that means other people aren't going to be getting their, space in the hospital when they have serious diseases. But that argument is, of course, nonsensical and irrational, because you could make that argument in so many other contexts, because then you would say, well, then we should mandate against smoking or obesity or fast food or the purchase of any product that contains like cancer-causing carcinogens, or people who don't get regular exercise, like, and on and on, and people who use plastic water bottles. I mean, these are all things that provably cause really serious health problems, or can cause really serious health problems, and therefore people are taking up hospital beds. Like, is that how we're dealing with like the healthcare system now? Is only if you make these choices do you get access to the healthcare system, and otherwise we're in control of your body and your choices?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, everyone who's wanted to have the vaccine has been able to do it. So, I mean, at some point, we need to let people accept the risk of their own bodies, and especially if the vaccine doesn't prevent transmission, then yeah, I don't know what to do with that whole situation. It's just to require it, to mandate it. It seems just a little too far, given what we know.
You have a brain that's trained for science. So what is your take on, like, I guess, the vaccine? From what you've read, if you've done the research, if you feel comfortable, like, just explaining to me your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm vaccinated. I've gotten 2 shots of Moderna. I did it as soon as I was able to sign up for it. I'm glad I did it, even though I did have a pretty bad side effect after my second shot. I mean, the data suggests that if you get the vaccine, you're less likely to come down with COVID. Another reason why I got it too is because I am with parents right now who are kind of high risk, and so I don't want to pass it on to them to any degree, and so they got vaccinated too, and so that's just sort of what I did to protect myself from COVID. I'm very into fitness, so I don't want to have anything that might give me a potentially respiratory issues for even a short while, and I've heard stories of it and some people it can last for a long period of time. So yeah, so that was my choice. I'm glad I did it. I do it again. I think for probably the average person, it's probably advisable that they do, just given the cost benefit analysis. But I draw a line at me like telling other people what to do, and especially if people are nervous about something and they're afraid. I don't think people should get a shot if they're afraid of getting something. I wouldn't want to have someone lose their job because they're afraid of something, even if they're getting bad information somewhere and you can say that, like, oh, you're ignorant. I mean, that's still, the fear is real, and it just, the idea that you're going to give someone a shot against their will, or they're acquiescing to a shot that they don't want to have. I can't go that step and just, want to demonize these people. And at the end, I think it is a personal choice, even though I think we do need to talk about how it is useful for, well, I mean, I guess I was going to say, it helps protect other people, but, if we can transmit
Let's go there. Make that argument.
Well, but the data of transmission, if you've already been vaccinated, I don't know if you can transmit it at equal rates, if it's diminished. I don't know how much you can actually transmit it if you've been vaccinated. I know you can. It's possible. I don't know the current data on, like, are you half as likely to? Are you just as likely to? I've seen some people suggest that you're even more likely to. You have like a higher viral load, but I haven't really dug into the data on those. But yeah, I mean, I think just making the personal safety argument, I think, is one way to go. But everyone has different situation. Ultimately, I think it's just like something you should probably talk to your doctor about, and if it's right for you. So Yeah,
It
I'm not
seems to
gonna.
be that many people have gotten the vaccine and then still gotten COVID and then still ended up in the hospital or still passed it along. And I don't actually think that most people who aren't getting the vaccine are doing it because they're scared that it's going to do something to them. I think that they don't need it because they realize this vaccine is kind of bunk and doesn't really do what a vaccine is supposed to do. And they resent being told that they have to. And they're like, I don't need this. Don't tell me what to do. Like, if you're old and if you're vulnerable, then sure, go get it. But I think for people who are like healthy and like our age, people are like, I don't really need this. And most people who are getting the vaccine, I don't know if they truly believe that it's going to protect them from anything. They're just doing it because they have to. And they're like, well, I want to go to the bar. I want to go see this comedy show. I want to go to this concert. Like, I want to go to restaurants. So, yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and do this. But, like, so I don't even understand this massive push for everyone to have to get the vaccine, except that I think that it's profitable for big pharma. And I mean,
And it's
maybe
been political
surveillance.
too. It's political signaling is involved in there too, for sure. Yeah.
Fucking political signaling really screws up so much.
I wish I could see how the world would be without just like every issue being completely polarizing, no matter what it is. I mean, everything.
Yeah, it's everything is like you whatever position you take, you're either left or right. That's what it is. If you're left, you have to take this
Yeah.
position. If you're right,
You know,
you have to take this position.
I just really wish I had like a crystal ball where I could see if Trump won the last election and brought out the vaccines under a Trump presidency, to what degree would the roles be flipped of parties would, because I mean, you had Kamala Harris saying like, I don't trust Trump, and if this vaccine comes out before the end of the year, then we know it's not good. And you know that was, they were literally saying this during like the debates of, you know, instilling vaccine hesitancy in people because they didn't trust Trump. And I would just love to see what that world would look like if he had won, and whether or not it would just be totally flipped where you have all of the MAGA people just like taking pictures, getting their vaccine and posting their little shot. You know, I got my Band-Aid on. It would just, I could totally see it being the case. Like, yeah, I could, because most of the vaccine, the anti-vaxxers, at least historically, had been more on the left. Is that right? I mean, that has been my assessment of it. Just like you got like the Jenny McCarthy's and the people who are spreading that sort of, you know, it causes autism. In my view, that was more of a left-wing type of idea. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but it seems that that's flipped, and I think it could have easily gone the other way with the whole vaccines, just depending on who's president and who the vaccine came out under.
There's different levels to this. One is just like the base population. You can divide them up into, I guess, MAGA and then like the Democrats probably, like basically, you know, that are kind of bashing each other over the head with like vaccine, anti-vaccine. But what really confuses me is the intellectual layer where everybody's got all these studies. Everybody has 10 studies to back up all 40,000 of their different views. So it's completely... Like, it's just, I have no footing whatsoever. I'm not going to read all that. You know, like I kind of just slowly make a moral assessment that I'll get the vaccine. I got the vaccine. Nothing really bad happened to me. I got sick, but I do not want these politicians who I know have this equity agenda in the pipes. And the equity agenda is demonstrably, for me, one of the most evil things that I've ever witnessed personally. And I know that the people who are pushing these mandates are also pushing these ideological things. And if it was just removed from the ideology, like if equity had nothing to do with this, if wokeness, broadly speaking, had nothing to do with the vaccines and the mandates, then it would be kind of a different playing field. But I really don't trust these Democratic governors. I don't at all. And I know what they want. They want complete control, you know, and this is the perfect opportunity to get complete control over me. It's just like, it's really scary to me. So I get really frustrated, and it's hard for me to even communicate anything about this issue because I don't have 20 different freaking papers, which I could go out there and find to back up any view I have. So it's this intellectual layer where we call it politicization. But it's just this snap judgment where everything kind of just gets down to this thing where you're either for this or you're outcast, or you're against this or you're outcast. And it works with the anti-woke. And I try to kind of gently critique my side to say, you know, if we develop this resistance and this we're always in this fight. We're going to lose a lot of allies and we're going to make a lot of mistakes because we're not really engaging with each other like we want them to engage with us. And with the vaccine, I lose friends left and right if I say anything about it. So it's just like I have to speak out at some point, but if everybody collapses it, it's just really, really frustrating for me. It's really frustrating for me.
It's one topic I almost refuse to tweet about, vaccines, because it's just
That's probably the smart
Twitter
thing.
is not the medium for that.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I'm not an expert in the field either. So I mean, I do have opinions on things, but it's not something I'm just gonna do a tweet thread about or something. Because, well, one, I don't want to get the information wrong and potentially give people misinformation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I have been on podcasts where people are just, they want me to talk all about COVID, and it's just like, this isn't.
Yeah. Well,
this isn't
I'm
my-
sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm happy to talk about like my personal opinions here. I'm not going to give, but I mean, I draw the line at telling people what to do. I'm not going to be like, you should do this, you should do that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, everyone.
Yeah,
it seems like everyone wants you just to say the words like, get the jab. I feel like that's what people say. Like I've seen, Dr. Rollergator, if he's still in the chat, he's been on Clubhouse, and he's given perfectly lucid just explanations of the data and what he thinks, and people will accuse him of being this vaccine skeptic just because, and they'll even say it just like, so what do you think everybody should do? Should they get the jab? And it's just like, well, I mean, can you really make a claim for like an entire population of people? Like this is, I mean, maybe you can talk about like the average person, if they were to weigh all the costs and all the benefits, maybe it would be advisable, but it's just,
Okay.
I don't know if you can just make some blanket statement that everybody should get it. And
It's an opportunity for universal moralization or universal
for sure.
morality. So just on that front, I think it's interesting, super frustrating, but interesting because there's a lot of totalitarian or totalizing ideologies that will take advantage of anything that forces people into a yes or no kind of game. Prison's still
I just think we have to be consistent in our approach and analysis, and we can't advocate for bodily autonomy in one context but not in another, in my opinion. And we have to let people make their own informed, free choices about their bodies and their lives.
That has been an interesting thread, seeing people on the right saying "my body, my choice" in response to a vaccine.
Peugeot's right. We're completely in an upside down world. Everything's being flipped. Everything is being flipped. I'm going to take Meghan off because she's frozen again. And I don't want her to be frozen in a non-flattering mid-mouth move. She'll join back up. Sorry to drag you into that. I'm just I'm frustrated on that and a lot of just other issues. And
yeah, well, I mean, when I was on podcasts and people were asking, it was kind of in the beginning, and that's kind of when I was a little more reluctant to give opinions on it. But I'd much rather talk about it on a podcast than on Twitter, because that's just the worst place in the world if you want to communicate anything to people.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it's easy enough for me to dunk on the ACLU and be like, sex is real. I mean, that's my daily tweet on that topic.
Have you and Strace Changio met, cross paths yet?
I mean, I follow him on Twitter just because I want to see the madness in real time. But I haven't met him in person.
All right. Is there? Do you think that gender conversation has been changing? I have a hard time with anything other than they for people who are doing certain sorts of behaviors.
I feel like a lot of the
don't deserve my respect.
Yeah, I feel like there's sort of the issue du jour, and it switches. It kind of comes in waves. Sometimes you'll get a big push on the CRT stuff, and then that'll kind of fade away, and then there'll be some news item, and then all of a sudden it'll be back on like the gender identity stuff. It'll start going wild, and that's I find myself tweeting in response to a lot of this stuff. I feel like there's kind of a lull a little bit in the gender debate right now.
Well, there was that huge article. Well, I mean, not huge, but some stir,
Abigail
like the Chappelle thing, and then Abigail broke some interesting stuff.
We might be entering a new bull market for trans stuff right now, given Chappelle and Schreier's coming out with big stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're back, Megan. Can you hear
Oh,
us? She can't
okay.
hear us. So,
Yeah,
okay,
I can hear you.
You're back. Yeah. Yeah. We are just talking about
Um,
the different cycles of stories, and you have to diversify your content. So you got like I said, we all intersect with gender, but what are your other kind of like hot button topics that you can entrance an audience with? Because
well, I'm quite interested in the totalitarianism that we're witnessing in terms of the COVID restrictions and the vaccine mandates. So I talk about that a lot. And I'm not an expert on vaccines, despite the fact that I sound like one. I have very strong opinions, despite not being an expert. But it's mostly that I just oppose the mandates. Like, it's like, you know, I think people should be able to choose whether or not they want to take the vaccine, but I think all these ongoing restrictions in places like Canada and New Zealand and Australia are totalitarian and totally unnecessary in terms of what we're dealing with. And it really concerns me. Like, it just makes me feel like the world is going in a really scary direction. And yeah, and I'm like perpetually frustrated by hypocrisy, I guess. So, we see all these feminists saying my body, my choice with regard to abortion. Obviously, there's a big debate around abortion right now because of the Texas bill that passed, which allows people to sue anyone who helps a woman get an abortion, I guess. And yet they can't see the
yeah,
parallels between saying, but no, it's not your choice. These are a lot of the same people who are proponents of the vaccine mandate and, who want to like censor anybody who disagrees or has questions or challenges or whatever. And it's like that classic thing that, I mean, I guess I've been talking about that kind of hypocrisy in feminism for a little while now, that is like free speech for us, but not for them. Like our choice for us, but not for you. And I don't know if that they can't see that it's hypocritical or they just don't care. And that's, a cynical way of looking at things. If it's just, we don't care, we just want what we want, and we don't care what you want because you aren't one of us or you're not our political ally or whatever. But it's the truth. And at the end of the day, it just makes me not really respect those people. So, and I mean, it's just not a productive way to engage with people and within the real world. It's not a helpful way to get people on side. And I don't know, I guess I just find it kind of like depressing because I'm like, I can't really respect any of you anymore. Don't respect your activism. I don't respect you as a thinker. I don't think you have integrity.
hypocrisy is a big one. I'm sure I'm a big hypocrite, but I never know until afterward. So.
Well, at least if you'd realize it, you would admit it. Like, I feel like if I realize I'm being a hypocrite, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, fair enough. And then I think I would try to change my analysis or my approach. I would like
Yeah.
to think so.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, it's all this like political binary. And again, it's, this is such an overused term, but it's so much to do with virtue signaling to your tribe. And who cares what these people think because they're bad or they're crazy or they voted for Trump. So who cares what they think or feel anyway? And it's just creating a further and further polarized world, and it further dehumanizes people. We dehumanize each other because of our politics and our views, which is dangerous. And in my opinion, and I think we've witnessed, this can lead to like violence and like genocide and things like that.
Well, it's not just that, but if we don't practice compassion, forgiveness, and grace, and and community building, when the chips really are down, and they will be down, probably sooner rather than later, we're probably headed for some much more difficult times than anybody remembers because most of the Depression era people are dead. Not that we're going to get to Depression era Dust Bowl kind of levels, but the economy is going to suffer pretty bad. And we're going to need to rely on each other and pull together. And if we have not been practicing forgiveness and grace and compassion, just empathy for a cause or antipathy for people who stand against our cause, if that is the currency that is, that we're all practiced then, and the chips go down, then we're going to end up fighting over these resources if they do get scarce, and I think they kind of will be, and not working together to build them and to shore them up. So we need to be practicing those good, sound, liberal, Judeo-Christian kind of principles for when things get really difficult. And I think we don't know difficulty, especially the kids these days don't know difficulty. I mean, I don't know difficulty. I grew up poor, but I don't know the difficulty that could come down the pipes.
I've just been reading about the Chinese Cultural Revolution recently. There's a series of 3 books by Frank Decatur, I think how you say his last name.
Decatur.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, it's completely horrifying just how quickly things can get really bad. And as you said, I don't know how bad things can get. I'm just reading about it in a book that happened in China. And I'm not saying that's going to happen here, but I really hope we don't get to a point where it's where shit really hits the fan. I worry with the whole, huge spending, just inflation going up like crazy, and market just running itself off a cliff or something. I'd like to have kids at some point, as I mentioned. And I just worry that we might be in store for another big dump at some point. We already went through 2008, which, I was young enough and I got to weather that pretty good because I wasn't like an adult really at that point, in a real way. And then we have the whole COVID thing, which sort of reset a lot of things. But I can't get over the feeling that like there's something that's going to get darker before it gets better. So it's kind of always in the back of my mind.
I was talking to my friend Richie Hardcore yesterday for his podcast, and like I was feeling like one of the things that I notice about living here in the town that I live in, Mexico, versus living in Vancouver, like a relatively big city, smaller compared to some American cities, of course, but was that like I really felt there was like a strong sense of community and people really help each other out a lot with all sorts of things. And I think part of it is that, it's a small place, but also like it's a place that we don't have access to a lot of stuff. Like things aren't as easy to access here as they are in the city. So it's harder to operate independently. There's not good infrastructure, and like the power goes out and people run out of gas and people run out of water. And a lot of people who are living here, at least like the gringos, are all from somewhere else. So everybody comes here not knowing anyone. So you're sort of more reliant on each other in general. But it's like, I've never, if you're in Vancouver, you sort of feel like you can just take care of yourself. You don't really need other people to do anything for you. Like you can just buy everything or pay somebody to do something for you. And like and the way that people operate is in like a hyper independent way. So, people don't offer to help you out and you don't offer to help other people out, and people sort of operate within their own little bubbles a lot more. And like, even today, like a friend of mine is sick. So I was like, oh, I can go to the pharmacy and like buy the stuff for you. I'll bring it by, which is not something that would have ever happened to me in Vancouver, that I would have ever even thought to do for somebody. Or like, you have to do things like, because you can't get a lot of stuff here. It's like if somebody goes to the States, you'll have to like mail your like phone to them in the States so they can bring it back with them when they're here. Like if you need like shampoo and conditioner and things like that, it's just harder. Like you just don't have stuff here, and it's harder to ship stuff here. And so people just are a lot more interdependent in a lot of ways. And nice. So I feel
Well,
like I would be much
it forces
safer
people
here if
to
there was some
be
kind of natural disaster or something than I would have been in Vancouver, for example.
It forces people to be to have generosity, like actual generosity, where they're actually just donating their whatever their resources on whatever level to other people, and also gratitude, because people start to
Totally.
understand, like, oh, the person actually worked to get that for me, or they did this thing that I now understand, because there's more pressures on life, and with that in mind, maybe a lot of the problems that I've been bitching about and trying to refine my bitching about over the course of since Evergreen is that this is just it's decadence, because the people who are getting the most attention in the moment are the least qualified to do anything for humanity in general, right? All this, a lot of the gender stuff, specifically the gender ideology, people who are taking this gender dysphoria issue, which is a real issue, it's really thoroughly documented, and it causes some pretty extreme suffering for a certain number of people, but they're taking that and then using that to spindle out this weird fantasy world where they get to act like a 2-year-old with some sort of weird, like fake dong on their, vest jacket and weird hair color, and call themselves a Q or whatever, but when the chips are down, that's when heroes, and not just heroes in a romantic sense, but that's when like virtues are actually respected or valued. That's when they actually become in value, and that's why I say we need to practice those things.
Well, and I mean, the reality is that if you've been in a tough situation and somebody else helps you out, I think you're more likely to want to help other people out, just to kind of like, you're like, you appreciate that somebody helped you out. And so you're like, I want to help other people out to kind of like pay it back or something. But you also realize how much it matters. And I mean, if you have less, you're more likely to be in a vulnerable position and need help, which also sort of means, potentially you're more likely to be generous. I mean, if you have everything at your fingertips and you don't need anything else, you're not going to feel the same incentive to kind of reach out and help other people and share, I think. Which is
like a
not to
negative.
say I think everybody should be poor, but like.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like a trade-off, because you get into like the modern society where you can just have everything delivered. You don't rely on anybody else, but you do sacrifice that, like those human interactions and the quid pro quos, not even formally, just like the informal ones where you do them voluntarily because, that's just what you do for your neighbors. I'm just remembering the times right after undergrad, I went to Costa Rica to do like a sea turtle conservation thing. And it was really natural just to hitchhike. You just do it if you need to go somewhere. And in the States, it's just like, you're going to get murdered or something. But there it was just, you just do it. And I mean, maybe some people get murdered. I don't know, but it's not it's not very frequent enough to make the news. And people just do, hop in the back. We'll take you where you need to go if it's on the way. And there is very much just that sort of reciprocal altruism that I think we're kind of lacking in the U.S. and a lot of other modern societies. And then people are just going on to apps like Twitter and Instagram, and they're sort of just losing their minds on those apps. Like those are the only interactions they have, but it's not the type of interactions where you're actually forming bonds of any sort. It's just really, really superficial. And yeah, it's I mean, this is something that Jonathan Haidt recently he's been talking about it for a while, but I think he had a recent piece in Persuasion that talked about this whole thing. And in Quillette, Claire recently wrote a piece about the revelations about Instagram and its effect on specifically young women who are getting obsessed with these type of apps. So I think there's something we can take away from societies that maybe aren't quite so technologically advanced, and I think we definitely lose something when we detach ourselves from our friends and neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, as much as like I value whatever independence and freedom, I don't think that it's good to be like hyper independent where you literally think you don't need anybody else. You don't need relationships and community. You don't really need to rely on other people. First of all, because I don't really think that's true. but I think it creates really selfish, self-centered people, and then people who are judgmental of other people who might need help or who are vulnerable or something like that. I mean,
Well, yeah. Have you noticed, Megan, because when you started speaking out about, I don't know, gender and sex or whatever, I'm sure you probably lost a lot of friends, but you probably gained a lot as well, and you really find out who are those friends who will do that, engage in that reciprocal altruism, or who remember your history together, and will be there for you when the chips are down. I mean, I've definitely learned a lot about who my friends were and were not, and gained a lot of friends by people who just reached out through Twitter and just gave so much to help me in certain situations, people I didn't even know at the time. And those have sort of kept to be really close friendships, even though I've lost quite a bit. Has that been your experience as well?
Well, yeah, for sure. And I mean, when that happened, that is also what made me distance myself from the left, because it was like these people that I'd attached myself to and felt allied with and, like acted in solidarity with for many, many years, who of course like turned on me right away and didn't support me and were horrible to me. And I was like, and it was, people who were, I don't know, all sorts of people who weren't like politically inclined at all, but people on the right and libertarians and centrists or whatever who reached out and offered support. And a lot of people reached out and offered support to me. Like when I was on Katie Herzog's podcast recently, she was like, "How does it feel to be so hated?" And I was like, I don't really feel hated. I feel like a lot of people like me. Like, it's like, I guess maybe if you only operate in certain circles on Twitter, you might, or if you live in Vancouver or Portland or Seattle or something like that, you might think everybody hates me, but everybody doesn't hate me. And I get like, I don't really even get any mean like DMs. Like I'll maybe get like one out of like 200. But the vast majority of messages that I get and emails that I get are really positive, supportive messages from like nice, decent people from all areas of life and all sorts of different, political leanings, like Christians, right-wing people who come from the left, feminists, liberals, just everyone, MMA fighters. Like, it's not, just the real life is not what you perceive on Twitter at all. But yeah, I mean, it totally made me realize who my real friends were. And it also made me realize who I didn't want to be friends with. I don't want to be friends with the kind of person who says, "Oh, well, I privately support you, but like, I can't really hang out with you or be publicly associated with you because my friends don't like you and they'll disown me." And I'm like, why would you want to be friends with a bunch of people who will disown you because you associate with your friend who they don't even know, but they've decided they don't like? I was like, you're kind of like a pathetic human being. Like, I don't want to be engaged with people like that. And again, I keep like, being overly positive about my move here, and I'm sure maybe things will even out at some point, or maybe they won't, but it's like, I moved here and everybody, I've had such bad experiences in Vancouver, not just with the trans activists, but with a lot of friends who disowned me and ghosted me and bailed on me or said horrible things about me online. And it was really upsetting. Like, I don't get really upset by things that strangers say about me on the internet, but I get upset about the way that my friends treat me or things that people that I thought I was friends with say about me. Yeah. And like, I didn't tell anybody here what I did at all. And then, of course, when I was on Rogan, people found out that I was like doing something. They were like, "Who are you?" Like, I was like, But everybody was so supportive of me. Everybody was just so proud of me. And not even like, I don't even think, a lot of people did agree with what I was saying, but I'm sure there's people who didn't agree with everything that I said. And they just like were happy for me and felt proud of me anyway. And they're like, "Oh, look, it's my friend. Like, good for her." Whereas in Vancouver,
do you tell people you do?
Have been super judgmental about it. Oh, all sorts of things. I'm like, I'm a writer, and then I change the subject. Or I'm like, I have a podcast, and then I change the subject.
I mean, I find that same thing. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I say I'm an editor for an online magazine. It's like that's just as vague as possible. But then
Yeah.
at some point you have to let people know, especially if you're on like dating apps or something. It's just like, well, this shit needs to get out like right now.
Yeah.
So it's like, here's something I wrote. If you if you don't hate me after reading it, then maybe we have a future. So, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah,
I
it's an
mean, like
interesting.
some of my close friends knew, and people sort of found me online and followed my public account and were supportive or whatever. Like my boyfriend or whatever knew what I did, but most people that I was hanging around with didn't really know, and I was pretty vague about it. And partly that's just because I'm not interested in really talking about myself. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
go out and talk about my work really, because I do that all the time.
What do you talk about in the bar? That's an open question for both of you.
I don't know. I mean, I really love gossiping.
Oh, well, yeah, but gossiping about what? Like local politicians or
Like
the
what's going
gringo
on
delirium
in
that's
the
going
little
on around
community,
you?
like who's doing what, and like
But
who got in
local
a fight
gossip,
with
like
who.
people that you know that you mutually know, you like
Yeah.
dishing on
I
how
don't
a
know
social
what I
structure's.
talk about at the bar, to be honest. I mean, we talk about like political stuff sometimes. I mean, a lot of people who are here are obviously not in favor of like the COVID restrictions and the mandates and stuff, because that's why they left. Like the kind of person who would run away from Canada or the US during this pandemic are the kind of people who want to live free and don't want to be locked down and don't want to participate in that whole system. So, I've talked about that kind of thing with plenty of people. Um, I don't know, just like life stuff, relationships,
Yeah.
like,
I mean, basically that I definitely want to make some moonshine buddies in Nashville. That's my goal.
Mashville.
I'm sure there's like a moonshiners club thing. I want to learn from some like old grizzled like moonshiner who he builds his still out of clay and like the out of some river or something. Like I really want to, I don't know if you ever heard of Popcorn Sutton. He's like I think he died, but he was one of the last old school moonshiners in Tennessee. I need to find someone like that and just learn from the best.
Oh, so you're looking for a mentor.
I would, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I'm pretty good at making moonshine, but when I go to Nashville, I want to up my game. I want to get like a bigger whole setup
Yeah.
and take it to a new level.
Megan,
do you
do you
think
have a
you'll start
mentor?
like making your own what?
Oh no, I'm sorry. You
Oh,
interviewed.
I was gonna ask you if you're gonna start like a company. Like, are you looking to like make your own branded moonshine, invented moonshine
I would
business?
love to be like a master distiller somewhere. I think that would just be enormously fun, and you can express like your artistic, you have artistic license with what you're making and the ingredients and everything. The thing is, if I'm trying to do it on a personal level, like in order to get like a distilling license, it's a lot of money to do that. And for if I'm just trying to make it for friends and family, it's just not worth it. So I have to kind of just do it illegally at this point. Um,
Nice.
but if
Fucking bootlegger here.
if I had good enough stuff and people wanted to pay for it, like I would love to have like a little distillery bar or something where I can make my own line of booze. Nashville's a place to do it. Who knows? Maybe that'll be a new chapter. Open up
Do
a
they have? Is it easy to get a
boutique
license
store.
there? Do you know? Have you looked into that?
No, I haven't looked in Nashville. I imagine it's probably better than California, but there's like a federal and like a state level thing you have to do to get your license. You got to renew it, and yeah, it's a big hassle.
I'm excited to know somebody in Nashville because I would like to visit Nashville.
Oh, you should make it out. It's amazing. I loved
What
it so
was the
much.
weather like when you were visiting? Is it like humid?
I visited it at the worst time of the year, like mid-August, and it was pretty humid, but not like Cabo and probably where Megan is right now. Um, I had spent years in Pennsylvania where it gets pretty humid out there, so I can actually handle some humidity. But it wasn't as bad as PA in Mexico. I can handle it for sure.
What were you saying before I interrupted you, Benjamin?
Well, I like the just the thought experiment, or just the line of inquiry of looking for a mentor. You know, like, who's your hero, who's your da 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 da, but like, who's your mentor? And I've never been in a situation where I've looked for a mentor. I've found a couple since I started this podcast and stuff like that. But I was just wondering, have you, Meghan, like, had a mentor, like somebody beyond, like, somebody you aspire to emulate, but somebody who's older than you, wiser than you, that you've entered into some sort of relationship where they actually build you up and they hand you knowledge? Have you been graced with such a relationship?
Yeah, like, I've had feminist mentors, like when I was sort of newer to doing feminist work. They were women that sort of took their wing and directed me and supported me and led me and taught me. But those women are honestly, a lot of those women, not all of them, but a lot of them I've probably fallen out with at this point on account of my
You're like the Darth
lack
Vader
of
of
dedication
feminists.
to the ideology.
Just like stick the lightsaber in the back of your emperors.
I had a similar thing with a professor at my community college. He was like the president of he was one of the mentors of like the atheist club there. He was always just like, "Oh, Colin, you're gonna go out and do some really big things," and you know, he thought I was just, you know, like would be great as a scientist and as a voice for atheism. And then as soon as I started talking about the gender stuff, man, he just, oh my God, he went absolutely apeshit on me. He like wrote these huge things on Facebook. That's just like the biggest rambling thing. He was someone I looked up to big time as being a really intelligent, super smart and dissecting arguments. And just to see this like blather come out of this person because I wrote like my J.K. Rowling article about the sex as a spectrum. It just, my opinion of him just like shrunk, but he just completely went bonkers. But it's definitely like a mentor, sort of the Darth Vader type thing, where it's just like I have become something, but it's not what you had in mind.
So isn't that weird? It wasn't enough for him to just distance himself from you or say, I kind of disapprove, but like he actually had this outpouring. What you describe as irrational, but like he actually had to go after you and denounce you or cleanse you from his system. Like there's some sort of weird purity shit going on. If that was his only recourse too. What? He brought Nietzsche into this?
Oh yeah. No, him and this other professor there in the philosophy, they were just like, well, like if we're talking about biological sex and social constructs and stuff, it didn't make any sense. I can probably bring him up at some point and show you the whole interaction, but it was completely insane.
How do you use Nietzsche to like?
It was almost like, well, Nietzsche said this one thing, and we all know that's true about everything, and it was no empirical anything. It was just some.
So Nietzsche's the Bible now. Nietzsche's their prophet. Like
Nietzsche quotes, and now I'm beyond the pale. He also ended with the whole I can be friends with people, but not friends with people who deny my own existence and identity. And I don't know, it was pretty intense.
Oh, so he was like a secret transvestite, it turned out at the end.
No, well, I mean, he was mainly talking about his own friends and family because he was a gay man, but he knew a lot of trans people, and so So I was denying he accused me of denying the existence of intersex people or something, even though like my article talked about it's 0.2% or 0.02%. I was like, well, I didn't deny their existence. I literally gave it like a number. Like that's not denying it. That's just acknowledging it.
It's just so obviously messed up, and like it's idiotic. Like, and what it does to people is turn them into idiots. It's not just an idiotic ideology. It actually turns you. Yeah. It fries your brain. It's like worse than marijuana.
Worse than what?
Marijuana. Worse than marijuana.
It's the pathway that P.Z. Myers went. I feel like he went there first. P.Z. Myers.
P.Z. Myers. No, this is like some sort of weird, cool internet story. Okay, let's hear about the tale of P.Z. Myers.
PZ as Richard Dawkins would say. He's a developmental biologist. He was big in the New Atheism movement. He had a blog called Pharangula, and I invited him out to give a talk at my community college, and I picked him up at the train station, got dinner, everything. He was one of my favorite bloggers for a long time. And over time, he just gradually lost his mind completely. Is now maybe the most woke person that I know. And he still has his 160,000 Twitter followers. Especially, I've looked, it's been going down ever since he's been going insane. But he's completely rabid, like more than anyone. And I watching his trajectory over time, it's really exaggerated, but I see friends in different stages of PZ Myers, because he started this going woke from non-woke to woke. Maybe he started in like around 2008, 9, 10, right around there. But I see people going down that same exact pathway. It's like Matt Dillahunty, who was prominent in the New Atheist movement. Some of my personal friends who had become professors, and then their pronouns go up in their profile when they get a job. And then I just see the same maniacal, just almost venomous way that they interact with people. And it's just like, ooh, I just see PZ in everything they do. And it's like, what are you doing? This is definitely a trajectory. It's I don't know. It's like a syndrome, and it has like stages almost. It's really bizarre to see.
So what have you like contemplated enough to like say like what sparked that, or what was the weakness in his worldview, or even a personality trait that it tends people to go down this slippery slope of rabidity?
Yeah, that's the thing. I've been trying to think about, like, do all these people have something in common? And I honestly can't think of this one trait that they all have in common that caused them to go that direction. Like one of my heroes, I guess, ex-heroes, although I learned a lot from this person. He taught me about the burden of proof, and I watched all the time, as this guy named Matt Dillahunty, and he was the host of the Atheist Experience. I just loved Matt for so long. Huge influence on my thinking, and he's gone down that path. And if you had told me back in the day that Matt Dillahunty would have been taken over by some quasi-religious ideology, that I wouldn't be able to contemplate it. And now I see this happening in people that I'm either close to or have known for a while. And I thought maybe, were these people religious beforehand and they rejected religion and then they went to atheism or something, so they have like this religious sort of bone in their body where this drives them to these ideologies. But no, I don't think, because PZ hadn't been religious before. Matt Dillahunty was, and some of the friends I have had never been religious, and so I don't see what ties them together.
Well, do you see what made you not go that way or turn around from that direction? Because you said you'd written some
I don't know if it's any
blog
one
articles
thing.
or something.
What's bizarre is I think a lot of it was the things I learned from Matt Dillahunty. You know, just the way you approach things like the burden of proof, and you can withhold judgment on things until evidence arises. And so that's kind of how I approached the whole gender thing for a while. It's just like, this sounds weird, and I'm going to try to see if their beliefs are falsifiable, and then just approached it from all these directions using all the tools that was given to me by a lot of the people I looked up to, and that kept me from going woke, but it didn't keep them from doing that, even though they were more skilled in the dark arts than I was. So I don't know. It's a bizarre. I don't know how to describe it. It seems pretty random.
I want to proffer just something, and then I want to hear Meghan was bouncing around in Meghan's brain. But there was this paper, either released recently, but it was just shared with me, that analyzed authoritarianism on the left and the right, and they basically come to the conclusion from this paper and the extract of the paper that I read that the authoritarianism came first. Before the left or the right, before the ideology was a mindset that wanted to make other people do what you think is right. That might be the step. And that's just something that I offer, because what you said earlier when we were talking about a fraught issue with the COVID and the vaccine and stuff, you're like, well, make your own choice. And you're like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. There might be something that inclines certain people to want to tell other people what to do. And there are different, what we kind of, I think we still don't really define when we call something a religion, but something about wokeness, when we describe it as religion, is something that mandates that other people need to believe this way or do this thing, or it's a moral worldview. It's totalizing and stuff like that. And you abstain from that, or you're not inclined toward that. That might be one way in which you're inoculated from it as a whole or in part. That was my thing.
I think I was kind of inclined to tell people what to do.
Well, what made you not want to do that?
Inclined to tell people what to do. I just try not to tell them what to do. But I think I, for a long time felt like my ideology was right and everybody that didn't see things my way was wrong or stupid or didn't get it or something like that. I think that I have like a rabid commitment to authenticity and like the truth. Like it makes me really, really, it gives me a lot of anxiety to not be able to like totally tell the truth. And like, like even like in personal relationships, if I can't feel like I can be fully myself, it gives me a lot of anxiety and I can't handle it. So I think I just really want to be honest about what I'm thinking and who I am. And I don't think that's true of a lot of people, to be honest. I don't think that for a lot of people, their primary drive in life is to act with integrity and to be truly authentic and to seek the truth. I think for a lot of people, their primary drive is to be comfortable and to get along. And that it doesn't make them upset to be phony and fake, because there's a lot of people out there who I think are really phony and fake, and they seem to be okay with that, and I just couldn't do that. And I don't want to say like, I don't want to be like, I've never lied before, because that's not true. I'm not like a perfect being, but like the way that I want to operate and function, to me, that's like one of the most important things, is that I can be authentic and be myself and have really honest conversations with people. Like I want the truth in all sorts of different areas in my life, like in my work, but also like in my relationships and in terms of the conversations that I have with people. I find it really exhausting to not be able to like fully be myself. Like I just, so I don't know if that has something to do with it or not, but I know like even when I was younger, like when I was a teenager, I would get upset with friends who seemed fake or who acted one way in certain situations and a different way in other situations, like one way with this friend group, and then they'd have a whole different personality when they're around this friend group. And you see a lot of people today behaving like that in real life versus online. So you'll know a person in real life and then they'll have this whole other personality online, usually that's very unlikable to me. And I'm like, why are you acting like this? This isn't who you are at all. Like, why are you putting on this fake personality for the internet? And I assume that people do that because they don't really like themselves very much, because I feel like if you really liked your personality, you wouldn't bother to put on a fake personality on the internet that you think people would like better. But like, that's just not what I want to do at all. And I honestly think that's why a lot of feminists get angry with me, because I think that the way that I speak in public is actually the way that I speak in my personal life. Like, the things that I say out in the world are the same things that I say privately. And I think you're not supposed to do that. Like, I don't really actually know very many public feminists who do that, who are truly like who they are in private life versus who they are in public. That, most of them put on this like political persona. And I really just want to be myself and say what I actually really think.
Yeah, I find the pursuit of, if you value what's true, I try to surround myself by people who I don't agree with, and I think this is something you're probably doing too, because if you just agree with everything people around you are saying, then it's not a good way to poke holes in your own ideology. I mean, if you all share the same blind spot, then this isn't conducive to knowing the truth. And I remember back when I was in atheist clubs or whatever, I hated talking about atheism. It was weird because I was the vice president of the Atheist and Free Thinkers Club at my community college.
Yeah.
And then when we had our atheist meetings, I didn't want to talk about atheism because that's something we all agreed on. I don't want to just dunk on the Pope again and again and like, oh, aren't religious people stupid? I tried to always bring in, of all these atheists in a room, okay, we all know that we agree on this one question, but I was always interested in like, well, what don't we agree on? And that's what I wanted to talk about, because that's just where you can push yourself out in different areas and find out what else we think is true. Like, and I try to do that more now, and I find that the friends that I make now are almost invariably people I disagree with a lot on a lot of issues, or at least some issues. Like I'm befriending a lot of more people who identify as Christians, whereas before that just really wasn't the case. I wasn't in those circles, and it's fantastic to be able to meet people that you can disagree with on very fundamental things, but still sort of connect on another level. And if I find that those relationships have been just incredibly rewarding and have really helped me find, pursue truth in other directions that I didn't really have before when I was not exposed to these different ideas and didn't come out myself with like an honest take because I was too afraid of, the consequences or something of speaking out. So it's been really an amazing experience, like just being public with my views and just tweeting out what I actually think and believe and getting immediate feedback and then making a lot of contacts. What was that?
But you're not going to tweet about vaccines because you don't want the feedback that you'll get on.
Well, I get some friends who well, I call one person sort of an ex-friend because they just completely went rabbit on me. But they'll send me tweets every once in a while, just like after I was on Rogan, like, well, since you have a lot of Rogan bros follow me, maybe you should tweet at people to get the jab now. And it's like, no one's like, everyone, like if I tweet about getting it, it's no one's going to be convinced if I'm just out there saying like, get the jab or something. Like it's not going to, they want to dictate what I tweet now or something. It's just
hate
a weird.
That. I hate that more than anything else. People telling me what to do. People telling me what to say. You should do this.
I'm sorry, I'm not interested in what you're interested in. Like,
if they can phrase it like,
why aren't you writing about this? Why aren't you
I would
talking
like to
about
hear.
this?
Yeah, but why don't you talk about this? Why don't you write about? Don't tell me what to do.
Like, well, I don't want to. Like, I'm talking about the things that I want to talk about and that are important to me. And I think I know how to do my job. Like, I've been doing it for a long time, and I understand that not everybody's going to be happy. But it's like there's so many people who think that they could do it better than you, and they're mad that you're not saying this and not saying that, and why are you behaving in this way and engaging with this person? And it's like, I guess it's that control thing because it's like, well, then you go do it. Like if you want to go talk about that, then you go talk about that.
No, go ahead.
And you
start a channel.
A decade building.
Write an article.
And like, good luck to you. You go through what I've been through and like all the work that I've done and like the amount of work that I had to do for free to build this platform. Like people are like, she's doing it wrong. She's undeserving. We're pulling our donations and support from her and because she's not saying what we want her to say anymore. And it's like, okay, I mean, you don't have to support me. You're not obligated to. But also, like, don't you want me to act in a way, like, don't you want me to work independently and think independently? This is sort of who I've always been. Like, I don't want to be beholden to people and what they think and to say what they want me to say because they give me money. Like, this is not how I operate.
Yeah.
And I never have operated like that.
I understand. Well, I don't, but I do understand that it is accepted societally that a customer is always right when you're talking to a, fucking Starbucks manager, which is still crappy the way that people would treat a Starbucks manager. Like, the entitlement of that. It's still, I look down on it, but it's the customer's always right. That in the gig economy, you're right, or in the grifter economy, let's just whatever you want to call whatever we're doing, to like demand that these independent mom and shop media creators who are just like trying to do the best with their small little thing. Maybe Colin, you're part of a team, so you're editing and stuff like that. I do all my own stuff. Megan, you're pretty independent, but you
Yeah,
do a lot of editing
I do
too.
everything myself. I have
Yeah.
to do everything myself. And so many people are like, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And I'm like, I literally am doing as much as I can do, and I'm not getting everything done at all. I'm not even keeping up. I'm never keeping up with anything. I'm never keeping up with my emails or my editing or any of the writing that I want to do. It's like, I'm just one person, and it's like, why aren't you doing all of this? I'm like, I don't know if people understand like what's happening. Like they think that I have a bunch of. I think people think I have a lot more money than I have, and that maybe like I have the money to like pay staff or assistants. Like no, literally, I do everything myself. Like
to give them grace, or the flip side of that is that people who want me to do things that I don't want to do care enough about the things that I do that they just want me to do more. Like it's actually like a vote of confidence. It's just expressed in a way that's kind of frustrating for me, or can be demeaning in certain aspects. But you get a glimmer. People care about what you're producing, so they're just like, oh, well, can you do this? Can you do more? So like, there's a positive in that mix. Like at least you matter enough for people to be demanding more of you, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, as long as it's a suggestion and not like a demand. Like I suggested you have Rebecca Riley Cooper on your podcast, but I'm not demanding that you do.
Oh God.
Actually, I do demand it. She's amazing.
Well, if I'm cool enough for her, then she's on. She's on. I'll have her and try to book her.
I'm sure Megan knows who that. Megan, you know Rebecca Riley Cooper?
yeah, I know her. I haven't been in touch with her for a while, but I was at some point a few years ago.
I was talking to Ben before you got on the very beginning that she was she sort of peak gendered me, I guess, with gender ideology back like in 2016 or something, when that video that she did came out when she's critiquing gender ideology. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen the video, but yeah, she wrote a really good article back a few years ago.
Yeah.
That was very intelligent about the subject, yeah.
Yeah, she was my gateway for sure.
Yeah.
The gateway. Like your marijuana.
First marijuana, then baby laxatives.
Oh, laxative. I kept on saying it's baby food. It's actually laxative.
No, it's baby laxatives.
Okay. Yeah.
What are those for? What do you
That's what they cut
additive
cocaine
for
with.
your
Well, that's one of the
little,
things they cut cocaine with.
It's the last thing you want to do if you're like trying to take coke. Is it's like all of a sudden you gotta shit.
Yeah, that's what happens. Is people do blow and then have to like run to the bathroom.
Okay. Well, I mean, but
That's
they
like a
really
real
run.
thing. Yeah, really. Literally.
Do you guys want to angle towards wrapping it up, or did you guys have more content to produce?
I have a date
tonight?
with a karaoke bar, so
Okay, well there we go. What topic should we end on? I mean, we don't. We'll plug ourselves at the end. Like, if you guys want to plug yourselves now, we can plug ourselves now. But
did
is there,
anybody
like,
watch
another
the
thing
Chappelle special?
I didn't watch the Chappelle's.
Haven't yet. I saw a clip where he used the word
Turf.
gender and he should have used the word sex, but otherwise it was really good.
Yes, it was very annoying.
Yeah.
I think
no,
he's
this is the funny
hilarious. Like, I
thing.
think he's a, huh?
Well, it's the funny thing that he's like. I think it was actually intentional because it's driving people up the wall. He said, trans people invent words. I'm sorry. This is what Chappelle said. I'm not saying this. Trans people invent words to win arguments. And then he used gender instead of sex, and now everybody's trying to ruin his joke because he didn't use the right word. So TERFs correct words to kill jokes, which is something that they do.
Well,
So
I
it's
mean,
a joke
he
within a
just said
joke.
the wrong thing. I mean, a lot of people get gender and sex confused nowadays, but it's just, it frustrates me when that happens because it just makes the whole argument not make sense as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But he, I mean, I think he's amazing. He's super funny. He's a comedic genius. He's obviously like
He's
one
got
of
a
the best
good
ever.
way with the crowd. Like the way that he tells stories is very, very. I would love to be able to do that live, like just to talk that relaxed and engaging.
I think it's amazing that his little section on trans stuff within this special, which I watched last night, got so much heat and controversy, or even like that, so-called TERFs were like applauding because nothing that he said was really insightful or interesting at all. Like, or controversial. He didn't say anything negative about trans identified people. He even said, trans women are women, but then, sort of implied their genitalia was not really technically like a real vagina, which of course is obviously true. But like, he, I don't know. It's super weird to me that there's any big controversy in either direction. And I didn't really like what he had to say about trans stuff anyway, because he doesn't seem to super understand the issue. I mean, he ended up taking an angle that was like, I'm really compassionate towards like trans people. They're just people who are struggling, which is not true. Like that's not necessarily a bad angle to take, but that doesn't have anything to do with trans activism or
Gender
why people are
ideology.
so firms or having this debate in the first place. Like the
Or
reason that there's a
children.
debate about this in the first place is primarily because of the impact of this activism and these policies and this legislation on women and kids. Doesn't have much at all to do with compassion, really. People like to pretend it does, but it's not. People who are opposed to gender identity ideology aren't opposed because they're not compassionate people. It's because they're genuinely concerned about pretty serious impacts of that ideology.
Well, that's what a ball palmer would say.
Are
But
even weighing in. Well, apparently so. Here's a ball palmer saying
I
it.
love that font that you used or the type that
My
you
friend
used.
Trisha made this shirt for me anyway. So for my birthday, it was an early birthday present. My birthday's not until October 17th. But she was like
Is that
so
a hint?
excited.
Okay. Megan Murphy's birthday's on October 17th.
You guys catch that?
Yeah, I'm writing it down right now. You should sell that as merch.
Yeah, well, so we are
Actually,
selling it
that's
as
a good idea.
merch. If anybody wants a shirt, they can email ballpalmer@gmail.com and get on a pre-order list. She's gonna
Real.
Wait,
make
literally?
and literally
Ballpalmer@gmail.com. Are you
set up a
serious?
Gmail account. I think it's the best shirt, not just because it's hilarious, but I think it's really good. Like I like that it's green, and I feel like she chose a good font. And the T-shirt's really nice. Like it's a really nice, good quality white T-shirt. Like I think it's like the best gift that I've ever gotten in my whole life. I was so happy about my ball. I mean, it's just become like a running joke for me. When people started calling me a ball palmer, I just thought it was like the funniest thing that I've ever heard in my life. And I was like, okay, I'm a ball palmer. True.
Colin, do you have any merch specifically tailored to you? Hopefully
on my Substack, I have one item. It's you can get a mug with my Reality's Last Stand, a little shield and logo on it. But I feel like I need to expand that. I want to branch out and do release some like fitness programs and do the whole swipe right fitness business that I've been trying to do for a while, or at least been on the back burner. So maybe that's coming. I had some logos made recently, or I had some logos made for me by a friend who didn't have to do it but chose to do it. And they're pretty good. So I'd like to do that at some point and maybe get some.
Would you accept $1,000 to beat the hell out of Chink Junger? Would you do
that? Yeah. Has he been misbehaving lately? I mean, he has been for a while.
Twitter joke. Somebody said he was going to beat up. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Young Turks guy. He was supposed to.
Jank.
Megan, you're muted.
Yeah.
But
I didn't know that was. Sorry, I muted my mic. Yeah, I didn't. That guy is such a loser. It's like, yeah, you can beat up Joe Rogan. You fucking idiot. I would love to see that. And I mean, of course, Joe Rogan would never beat him up because Joe Rogan is such a more skilled martial artist and fighter and in so much better shape than him that it would be an unfair fight. And Joe Rogan is actually a good man who is a respectful man with humility, and this fucking shitty little punk thinks like, oh, yeah, I could beat up Joe Rogan. And it's like, you could not. Like, what a joke that man is. How embarrassing.
Yeah, I
Well,
lost
okay,
all
but
respect for Cenk after he had like a 3-hour conversation with Sam Harris, and Sam Harris just ran, well, I'd say ran circles around him, but just like had him intellectually pinned for the entire 3 hours, and then after the podcast, and he acknowledged it like during the podcast, then afterwards, Cenk just like went on some flame war and just started calling Sam Harris like a Islamophobe or
pussies.
something. It's like,
Pussies.
oh. What do you? I
What a
just
baby.
after that I just completely wrote that guy off.
He's not a ball palmer. I'll say that much about Cenk.
Maybe he is a ball palmer. How do you
Not
know?
that there's anything wrong with that.
I don't even
Yeah,
think that he
exactly.
knows what balls are well enough to palm them. I don't know. I don't know the guy.
Ball
He's silly.
I don't
palmer,
even
yeah.
see. Was he
Balls,
trying to dunk on Rogan or something?
No,
that-
somebody said, well, "I'll give you $1,000
What?
if you beat up Joe Rogan," and he's like, "Yeah, I'll totally do it." He didn't see that on Twitter.
Like,
It's
I've
like
been
this.
fighting
I
all
missed
my
it.
life. I could beat him up, no problem. Like,
He said he could
oh,
beat up
okay.
Joe Rogan.
He did. He said, hold on, I bet I can find the tweet
I
right
mean, just
now.
anytime, even if it were true, just like the whole like, I can beat you up. It's just like, really? That's how we're.
It's so childish.
That's how
I
we're-
know. It's so
You
childish.
you have to get muddy. You have to be you have to kid at least. I try not to be childish, but I kid all the time, right? So you got to have a little bit of that. No, you guys are very respectable, Colin.
I mean, I don't think my humor has really evolved since I was 12, but
well, yeah, with the
I mean-
nose. How's your nose doing?
I gotta wax it again.
Okay, so Colin, I have to talk about
just
this.
during this conversation. I've been feeling
You
it.
have to wax
Okay,
your
so-
nose?
Colin has waxed his nose hairs. How did it feel? Did it hurt when they
Oh,
like
there's-
ripped it out?
It's like horrifying when you do the whole, yeah, in the moment, but then afterwards, having a completely smooth nostril, there's nothing quite like it.
Then
Highly
you go
I
down to
thought that you
Mexico and
needed
get the
nose
good
hairs to keep your nose from like running all the time. I mean, I think men should definitely maintain their nose hairs.
It's-
I
it's
think that
very
most men I know
annoying.
use like a shaver.
Yeah.
Kind
I
of.
mean, you're not going back like super far, but I don't know, maybe I just
Okay.
have maybe I have a rampant nose hair problem. But
I mean,
well,
everyone.
yeah,
should
that's the thing. Does it, like,
pay
the-
attention to their nose hairs? Like everybody should really be paying attention to that. Nobody wants to have to look at anybody's nose hairs coming out of their noses.
or try to work around them. But did it? Are they coming back like twice as powerful now? Have you instigated this arms race with the waxing agent? And your
I don't think
nostril
so. I think it's I think they're just back.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'll take care
Because
of
you
it.
can use
You-
electrolysis, but I don't know what that actually means.
Yeah, no, I don't either.
Well, you can get like a laser thing that wouldn't work on your nose hairs. Like you can get like women do this all the time with their body hair. Like I've tried it, but like you can like zap away your hairs, but it wouldn't work. I don't think on nostril.
Would you get like
hair. I think
a
the
little
nostril-
hover droid and like it's like this micro nano droid and it goes in it like.
You know so little about like like products and like body kind of and face like I think you didn't know what filler was. You're like, is filler like when you have a zit? And I was like, how do you not know what filler? You don't really understand what Botox is. You don't understand about like hair lasering. Like you clearly don't spend very much time around superficial women to start.
I need to work on that.
No, I'll be
You're
having
the
another-
flag.
I'll be having
you're the
another waxing
flagship.
very soon.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So what's your Substack, Colin? Say it out loud.
Okay.
I've been neglecting it, and I feel bad for anyone who's subscribing. But it's gonna go. I'm gonna be paying more attention to the newsletter moving forward here. But it's realityslaststand.com. It's on Substack, but it's got its own domain.
All right.
Yeah, that's basically where I'm publishing stuff now. Also working for fairforall.org. I do their newsletter. Subscribe to that, and read Quillette. Those are my plugs.
And Megan, plug yourself.
Okay, wait. I found the tweet from. How do you say his name? I thought it was Cenk
I think
Ugar.
it's Cenk.
Cenk Ugar.
Cenk.
Okay, so somebody tweeted to him, I'll make a $1,000 donation to your trash network or your charity of choice to see you call Rogan, who is not only the most successful podcast in history, but also a black belt in mixed martial arts, a loser to his face. And then Jank responded and said, ugh, he's such a loser. I could barely even read this. Deal. Easiest $1,000 I ever made. You think he's going to assault me? Sure, whatever. That's incredibly dumb. But it also
Just
wouldn't
reading it's
work. I'm
painful.
much larger than Joe, and I fought my whole life. I'd end him. But grown-ups don't do that. I'll send you the P.O. box to send the check to later.
God, that's cringe.
It's so cringy.
It's top cringe.
What an embarrassing little baby. I'd end him. Oh, you
But grown-ups
try,
don't
you
do that. It's so fucking
I know,
leftist.
after saying
But
the
I'm
most
too good
childish
to do
thing ever.
that. I'm sorry,
Jesus.
not leftist, but
Okay.
just
Anyway, my I don't know what I'm supposed to plug. The Same Drugs is on YouTube.
yeah, it's great
Subscribe to
stuff.
the YouTube channel, please, and
She's got a lot of great guests. The Same
I
Drugs.
do have
YouTube.
great guests.
I do. I watch it regularly for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate
stuff.
that.
Are you still
Colin
doing
has been a
stuff for the
guest.
Feminist Current?
Yes, I'm still writing for my website, The Feminist Current,
That's yours, okay.
feministcurrent.com. Yeah, that's my website that I've had for 10 years now that I'm doing very wrong, and other people could do much better than me, but I don't know anyone else who's run a feminist website for 10 years, so good luck to them.
Well, you've aged beautifully in that time.
Anyway, this was fun. Thanks, Benjamin, for having
Yeah.
me. Sorry about my Wi-Fi connection issues.
That's
I really
fine.
am trying to figure it out, but it's not that easy.
It's been
We
okay for the
found-
last hour or so.
Yeah,
Oh,
we found
okay,
the
good.
right hot spot eventually. Can you guys wave like that? Okay, like right. Okay, there we go.